What's up everybody? This is Jonathan with Boston Collectors, and in today's video, we're going to be unboxing TMS-024 Darth Maul from the Clone Wars series. So to begin, we have the box design here, which is nothing out of the ordinary other than not having the Clone Wars band around the outside of the box. Now, the box shape is a little different to compensate for the design they chose for this release, but we'll get into that shortly. We have all the usual information from warnings to the holographic Star Wars logo, figure photo, and more. With this release, they chose to encapsulate Darth Maul in the Mandalorian sarcophagus. It's a really cool touch, but it would have been cooler if they added the additional quote-unquote buttons on the side. For now, the front of the box is the only textured feature we'll receive, as well as the small clear window for him to peer through. The rest of the design on the box are flat and simply printed on. As mentioned previously, this is probably the coolest part to the box and something you will want to protect. For some reason, HotToys chose a slipcover as the protective layer outside of the shipper box. I'd suggest double boxing this in case yours take a tumble or two during shipping. Other than that, it's okay. It would have been cooler if the cardboard were maybe as thick as the backdrop panels they usually give us at least. Either that or some form of plastic which would sit in an actual box. You can modify the inside of the box for lighting, but I would advise against it, unless you're 100% sure you're keeping the figure. It would take a lot of work, but it is possible. As mentioned before, I would have liked a raised panel on the side since they're giving this to us, but again, it doesn't exist. Overall, they captured the sarcophagus appearance, and if you're looking to store this in your cabinet, it would look good with the Coruscant Guard's standing watch. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and begin the review. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's dive into the accessories. To start, we are given relaxed glove hands on the figure right out of the box. With these, you do receive a pair which can be used for a multitude of gestures. He can have his hands behind his back, holding his hilt, reaching out. The world is your oyster. At least we're given a pair. Next, we're given gloved saber-holding hands or gripping hands. Either way, the only thing in this particular set he will be gripping is his hilt, so that's all you can use them for. At least they gave us a pair. Again, very happy to see that. And as for the last gloved hand, yes, the last one. We have one left force gesturing hand included in the box as well. That's all for the gloved hands, and we didn't receive a pair of these, unfortunately. Moving on, we have a pair of ungloved relaxed hands to match Maul's body tattoos. These can be used on the fully clothed version of Maul, but it would take away from the screen accuracy. There's a great amount of detail work in them, and we're able to see his fingernail beds even. I personally didn't know they were orange. Either way, pairs are the way. Lastly, we're given a pair of saber-holding hands as well. This is it. I'm not entirely sure why they cut a corner on the selection of hands when the gloved hands are the exact same ones included with the previous releases. Again, we'll talk on that later, so hang tight. We also have the communicator Maul cut off of one of the clones. It isn't the same kind of weathering on the previous troopers, but it is the same arm brace and its own unique paint job and weathering. Next, we have the light-up saber arm. The batteries are a lot easier to install on this versus an Iron Man figure, that's for sure. While it doesn't light up too bright, it's perfect for toy photographers and people who just might like them anyway. Installing the arm is as simple as pulling out the previous arm on the figure from the elbow down. For some unknown reason, you can do it with the other side as well. We were only given one light-up arm. It's unfortunate for collectors who might actually like the topless Maul, since it's just black. When you're done, hit the lights and check it out. It's not the brightest, but it's honestly better than the other light up arms that I've personally had in the past. It holds the light a lot better in the ignited saber effects than it does in the dynamic saber effects, as you can see here. Moving on to his non-light up hilt, the first thing I tried to do was separate them down the middle. You can't. The quality overall is nice, but the wash on the buttons make it appear toyetic or toy-like versus their previous releases. Maybe they were going for a grimy look and didn't execute it properly. Other than that, it functions as it should and it looks nice. As usual, we have this Venator style flooring base and the silver nameplate. We made a video about this, so check it out if you haven't already. Part 2, maybe even 3 coming soon. Now, as acrobatic as Darth Maul is, we have a crotch cradler. Perhaps the belt was too large, that happens. But they didn't care when it came to the Boba Fett 2-pack release. Let's move on. We also have a hood included in the box, and it isn't screen accurate nor comic book accurate. Again, we'll have a talking segment later on this in the video where we discuss this further. Installation is relatively easy, and it also gets rid of the overly long neck appearance we might be subjected to during posing. Did they try to compensate for this accessory by making the neck slightly longer? I don't know. What do you think? It does make him look cooler though, I'll give them that. For those of you wondering if this is a reissue of the solo Darth Maul portrait, yes and no. We'll begin with why it's not. The only thing that's different from this version versus the solo Darth Maul are 2 horns. The horns protrude and curve noticeably more on the sides of the Clone Wars release of Maul, whereas on the solo Maul, the horns on the sides are smaller and point outward. If you have both figures, run and check it out. Like the previous versions, this one is utilizing a magnet to secure and articulate the portrait. On top of that, we're also articulating the eyes through their purse system, which is short for the parallel eye rolling system. HotToys did include a tool for us to manipulate the eyes, but I personally prefer to use my finger. If you happen to have sausage fingers, this might be a very frustrating task. Once you're done, simple head gestures can go a long way with executing the look you're going for with his eyes. This isn't a bad portrait by any means, and I respect the work that went into it. I like it. However, I would have appreciated it if they at least gave us a different expression. Closed mouth frown, a deeper furrowed brow, something to separate this portrait from the solo Maul at the very least. Again, stay tuned. The overall body and articulation with this figure is very interesting to a point to where if you aren't familiar with posing, it can be very annoying. But let's start from the bottom up. While Maul's legs are metal, I don't want to see the screws beneath his feet. He was definitely given the armor a treatment here. Apart from that, everything from the knees down are very sturdy, and in my opinion, it will stand the test of time for sure. Ratcheted joints exist from the lower knee down, but not from the upper knee. You have subtle rocking in the ankles to allow for better posing, and the knee guards can articulate as well. As for the tailoring, it's very well done. No, you can't open the pockets on the cargo pants, and yes, there's a noticeable diaper-like padding in the crotch area as well. As for the belt, it's an okay design. It does match what we saw in the show, but for some reason we have 2 saber holsters for his hilt. Installation is relatively easy, and the holder for the hilt is pre-equipped on it as well. The gauntlets are interesting, at least one of them, because it doesn't close for me. The other one is perfect. I would have liked a pair where I didn't have to use this unclasped version. Now, as for the shirtless option, you'll understand why I said the belt is just an okay design. It looks great over Maul's clothing, but when it comes to this version, it's a bad design. You have a lot of extra breathing space that doesn't look natural or taper to his body. It's literally a one and done belt. You can bring it down further, but you risk exposing the ab articulation for the figure in hopes of making it appear more natural. As for the articulation, we don't have double bends in the elbow, but we can swivel the arm to articulate it in a way where we can achieve that bend to a certain extent. Well, that and a little help from the wrist joints. It's tough, and I don't personally like it, but it is possible to achieve. I'll tell you now that I'm not a fan of this look. In fact, I would have appreciated more work on the upper part of the body so that I could replicate Maul's acrobatic fighting style. Overall, the figure body's okay. Some great points and some not so great. To start, we have the DX-17 Darth Maul, the DX-18 Solo Maul, Count Dooku, the Coruscant Guard, Captain Rex, Master Qui-Gon Jinn, the Armorer, the 501st Deluxe Clone, the Death Watch Mandalorian, and last but not least, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Alright, so I hate to cut into the immersion of the video. Trust me, the cinematic outro is still coming. I just wanted to jump in and kind of share a little bit more of my expanded thoughts on the figure. Now, I've written out a list here. I won't go over the QC issues because I feel like that would draw it out a little bit more. But I did break them down in terms of QC issues, design issues, and design questions. So to start, we're going to go ahead and talk about the design issues. I really don't understand why they chose to go the route of a full-blown portrait reissue. Again, like I said earlier, the only two differences are the horns on either side of these portraits. That's it. The rest of the horns are pretty much identical. I've analyzed these portraits top to bottom, inside and out. Those are the only two noticeable differences outside of the more dull paint job here in comparison to the slightly shinier paint here. Now with that, again, the belt, that's another design issue. We talked about that in the figure overview section. I don't understand why, if you're giving us the shirtless Maul version, which mind you actually came from the comics Son of Dathomir. Now the Son of Dathomir was supposed to be included in the Clone Wars animated series, but it's more, I don't want to really say a spin-off, but a continuation of season 5. So if you're familiar with season 5, that's when Maul and Savage fought Darth Sidious. Son of Dathomir picks up from there. So that is why I believe we received the shirtless sort of appearance, if you will, of Darth Maul. But if we're going to go with that, Maul also used the Darksaber in the comics as well. So that's why I actually think we received the other hilt holster there, but we didn't receive the Darksaber. Why, I don't know. To get back on topic here, the belt design should have been, maybe we should have received another belt in the box to taper a little bit better to his body. Moving on, the box design, I would have liked a protective box at least around that, because in shipping, if you don't double box, you run the risk of your Mandalorian sarcophagus getting scuffed up or bent. I have a very slight dent in my box. If you pay attention to the intro, you'll see that it's in the corner, and it's kind of unsightly. I also would have liked if they maybe made that, if you're gonna give it to us, we need a more accurate look to the sarcophagus. I pointed that out earlier as well, and also maybe a thicker cardboard material, or better yet, you know, I would have been all right with some plastic, not the soft plastic, but you know, y'all, if they're gonna do it, why not like go big or go home, right? I'm shocked that it wasn't even a DX release. The previous versions of Maul were. Next, we have their articulation in the neck. Now, Darth Maul had a very prestigious look, very similar to the stance that you see here. Now, with the neck articulation, I find it odd that we're unable to sort of give him that stance where his chest is out and his head is low. You have to articulate that midsection. There's nothing in the lower neck. I would have liked something down there or another way to articulate that neck for this figure, and you really can't. Moving on, we also have the gauntlet clasp. I touched on that a little bit. I feel like if you're going to give this, that should have been an extra. People like me, I don't know, do you use the light up sabers? And no shame if you do. I think it's great for those of you who who happen to like them, but me personally, I don't use them. And I definitely don't like the look of this unclasped gauntlet on my figure. That's unsightly. The engineering that went into that is poor. Honestly, I don't understand why they couldn't go the same route that they went with the Revenge of the Sith Anakin. I understand that the gauntlets work a little bit differently, but they could have worked something out a little bit better than that, at the very least. Next up, I have some design questions. So, the hood doesn't come up in Clone Wars, nor does the hood exist in Son of Dathomir. I don't understand why we randomly got the hood included in this box. It just kind of felt like an extra, they felt like they were cutting corners, so throw a hood in there. And honestly, when you start putting the hood on, the tailoring underneath it, it's loose and it doesn't look right, but I understand that they couldn't stitch that because then you would mess with the tailored appearance, but I don't think we needed that. I also don't understand why the hands, not only were the selection of hands very poor, and they also replicate what we received through older versions, but if you gave us gloved hands, why don't we have black pegs? I shouldn't have to look around for pegs. What if this is my very first and only hot toy? Red pegs, that doesn't make sense to me. So as you saw earlier, both arms can detach. I don't know why both can. I really think that something happened in the design process or the approval of the design and things may have changed, but for some reason, both the left and right arm can detach, but you only get one saber arm and it's black for Darth Maul. You don't even get the tattooed version of that light up arm. Why, I don't know. When you think about it, all of these design questions, this was looking like a very good DX figure if they actually put that time, energy, and effort into it. So the overall body design is I understand what they were trying to do, but for me personally, and let me know how many of you out there are going to use the shirtless Maul, I would have been okay without taking his clothes off. I would have preferred the double jointed elbows. I would have preferred to do more with the body. Let me know if you all are interested in a thorough comparison and breakdown for all three figures. I also have the Phantom Menace Maul off to the right here. The difference between these two figures in Star Wars canon is actually 9 years. Now, Dathomirians also age at a much faster rate than humans, and we don't actually see that in any of the films, because if you think back to Rebels, Maul was 50 years old in Rebels. When you only have 9 years between these two figures, I'm not mad at Hot Toys for keeping that same overall look and design. I like that they tried to go in and change some of the horns, but when it comes to that Clone Wars Maul, I would have preferred a different expression. When you give us that same exact expression and you just go in and manipulate something and say, let's just turn up the horns a little bit. I love y'all Hot Toys, but that's just, to me, this just feels like a very lazy release. Now, I know for those of you who are just coming into the Hot Toys game and you don't own the Phantom Menace Maul, or you just missed the Solo Maul, this is a very good release for you. It really is, but in comparison to the other two, it falls so short. It falls very short. So with that said, I'm going to let you all go ahead and finish the video, but this is just feeling like a very flat release to me. I'll go ahead and score everything within the cinematic outro. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is this your first Maul? Is this your third or your second? Let me know down below because it's falling pretty short for me. So thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy the video. In closing, without comparing this figure to the previous releases too much, it's decent. For collectors who don't have a previous version of Maul, this is perfect. In fact, I say perfect because you have two looks to this Maul that don't exist through the previous releases. The major downside for new collectors picking this up is the hand selection. Technically, yes, you're able to convey what you need, but you're also very limited with the poses that you can achieve. This is in no way a definitive version of Darth Maul from the Clone Wars, though. For collectors who are very selective of the figures that they pick up, unfortunately, you'd have to buy Moff Gideon or the next release of The Mandalorian from Season 2 for the Darksaber hilt. And even then, you won't be able to latch it on to his side. Trying to look at this release from a new pair of eyes, if I love the Clone Wars show and this is my first figure, I still feel like I would be disappointed. There's no way to view this figure technically because technically Darth Maul didn't have a shirtless scene in the animated series. It only exists in comics. When thinking of Darth Maul, I think of him ruling Mandalore. I would have preferred to see a Mandalorian throne. Yes, I think the Mandalorian sarcophagus is cool, but to a certain extent. It isn't necessarily screen accurate and it's thin cardboard. I also appreciate the extra detail work that went into the body and the skin appearing tighter on a slightly younger version of Maul. I'm gonna have to give this figure a 5 out of 10 for this release. I understand HotToys need to go through the license approval and all, but this figure in hand feels like it's still a prototype. Now, that's in no way any form of disrespect or slight to the craftsmanship and the quality that went into it, but it could have been so much better. While I also had quite a few QC issues, I did not factor that into the review. We all have them from time to time, and I felt that wouldn't have been fair to the product. I'd also suggest picking this up while it's on sale. I don't think this particular version of Maul will be selling out anytime soon. If you're able to pick this up on Sideshow Seconds at a decent discount, I'd say go for it, but right now this is not a $260 figure. If you have the Coruscant Guards or the 501st though, he will pose well with them. Not to mention Ahsoka if you happen to have her. Let me know what you all think down below in the comments section. Are you going to be picking this up? If you enjoy the release, let us know down below. This is Jonathan with Boston Collectors. Thank you so much for watching.